And welcome back to Janky AF. Okay, some quick housekeeping before this video begins in earnest. I wanted to add some further context because I want to just provide as much context to this video as possible now that the dust is settling a little bit after this whole Jaguar thing. A great video, which gets more into like sort of the branding side, because I feel like that's the big thing that people are kind of missing here. Maybe they just don't agree with it, as I'll get into, but there's a great video by Auto Esoterica, a fairly small channel, with this guy Jim Hall, and it's called The Truth Behind Why Jaguar is Blowing Everything Up. I think it's just a good sort of background into like how companies evolve and how much thought behind the scenes goes into all these little details like fonts and typefaces and stuff like that. Good video. Next, there is a Jalopnik article, which, full disclosure, I haven't read yet, but the title kind of says it all. The haters won't admit Jaguar's new Type 00 concept looks like a modern take on the E-type. One of the main thrusts of my argument is that even though they have this phrase copy nothing, the phrase copy nothing, and ironically somewhat, is derivative. It came from the founder of the company, allegedly, and as you can see, the E-type is like a strong emphasis in the heritage that they are drawing on in this rebrand and in this concept car. So I'll just leave that there for what it is. Lastly, and I guess you have to mention Doug DeMuro and anything, and I like that Doug's in his beard phase now. I'm very, I support the Doug DeMuro beard phase. But, and again, I haven't watched this yet, but it looks like DeMuro likes it too. So I thought that was like cool to see, because it's nice to see that some people are coming out and sort of seeing through the smoke and mirrors and looking at the actual substance of what's going on. So a very, very long video. Feel free to put it on in the background as you're doing whatever you're doing. And before we get into the actual video, I'm just going to leave you with some words from David Bowie, because he ended up figuring a lot into this video, which I think is kind of cool. Big Bowie fan here, and the fact that I was able to sort of insert some context using stuff that actually, live footage of him talking, I thought was pretty cool. So enjoy a little bit, and to set this up, it's a little bit of context about the internet, because a lot of this video is talking about how the comments and the bots and sort of this, both the good and the bad sides of the internet and viral culture and all that. And, to give a spoiler alert, David Bowie did have, he was a Jaguar owner of an E-type. So that sort of tied a bow on it for me of the whole thing. And he says some things about the branding and British culture, and it all just sort of made sense. So it was a very fortunate, serendipitous thing, and I like to take all these random things from the universe and connect them all together. That's sort of what we do here at Janky AF. I hope you find it entertaining, and maybe you learn a thing or two. I learned stuff, and finally I'll say that I talk about a couple commentators in this video, because I watched a lot of reference material before I talked about this. And in no way am I disparaging or putting down or trying to start internet drama. Not that I could, because I'm sort of like a minuscule YouTuber, but I have great respect for those people that I mentioned, and that's why I'm talking about them, because I respect them and I watch their videos. So while I disagreed with some things they have to say, the reason that I watch the videos is because I have respect for the platforms that they've built and their knowledge on things generally. So, okay, there you go. Without further ado, here's some David Bowie, and then we'll get into the video in earnest. All right, Janky, do thank you.
But what is it specifically about the internet? I mean, anybody can say anything, and it all adds up to what? I mean, it seems to me there's nothing cohesive about it in the way that there was something cohesive about the youth revolution in music.
Oh, but absolutely. And because I think that we, at the time, up until at least the mid-70s, really felt that we were still living under in the guise of a single and absolute created society, where there were known truths and known lies, and there was no kind of duplicity or pluralism about the things that we believed in. That started to break down rapidly in the 70s, and the idea of a duality in the way that we live, in there are always 2, 3, 4, 5 sides to every question, that the singularity disappeared. And that, I believe, has produced such a medium as the internet, which absolutely establishes and shows us that we are living in total fragmentation.
You don't think that some of the claims being made for it are hugely exaggerated? I mean, when the telephone was invented, people made amazing claims.
I know the
NDVs,
president,
for example.
The president at the time when it was first invented, he was outrageous. He said he foresaw the day in the future when every town in America would have a telephone. Now how dare he claim like that? Absolute bullshit. No, you see, I don't agree. I think the internet, I don't think we've even seen the tip of the iceberg. I think the potential of what the internet is going to do to society, both good and bad, is unimaginable. I think we're actually on the cusp of something exhilarating and terrifying.
It's just a tool, though, isn't it?
No, it's not. No. No, it's an alien life form.
What do you think, I mean, when you think then about the
future... Is there life
on
on Mars? Yes, it's just landed here.
But it's simply a different delivery system there. You're arguing about something more profound.
Oh yeah, I'm talking about the actual context, and the state of content is going to be so different to anything that we can really envisage at the moment, where the interplay between the user and the provider will be so in simpatico. It's going to crush our ideas of what mediums are all about. But it's happening in every form. It's happening in visual art. The breakthroughs at the early part of the century with people like Duchamp, who were so prescient in what they were doing and putting down. The idea that the piece of work is not finished until the audience come to it and add their own interpretation, and what the piece of art is about is the grey space in the middle. That grey space in the middle is what the 21st century is going to be about. Everything that we do in rock and roll has a sense of irony attached to it. We know that we're not the Americans. We know it didn't spring from our souls. And so, as the British always do, they try and do something with it to make them feel smug. And that's what we're good at doing.
And welcome back to Janky AF. Well, I'm in an undisclosed location, and I just happen to have like an old scale model of, just says E-type, like an old Jaguar E-type, and I thought that was so serendipitous because there's all this hullabaloo going on right now about the Jaguar Type 00, and almost more hullabaloo about the commercial that preceded it, the marketing campaign, the bright colors, the electric car, all the stuff. So I don't like jumping on these algorithmic bandwagons, but I suppose we all have to. All the YouTubers, I watched 4 videos. I tried to write some notes here. I watched That Dude in Blue. I watched Harry's Garage. I watched Top Gear, and I watched regular car reviews. The regular car reviews, in my opinion, was the best because it was a broad context of the entire history of, Jaguar and Tata Motors and Ford, and, gave a lot more context to the whole situation. The other ones I was fairly disappointed with. Now, I watch That Dude in Blue and Harry Metcalf pretty regularly. I like their channels a lot. I just think, and then I saw Tyler Hoover in April had a video. I haven't watched that one yet because honestly I got sick of watching these videos. But I think that, there's a whole separate commentary here on jumping on the algorithmic bandwagon, and we have to talk about the latest current event, and everyone's got to talk about it. That's why I'm recording this video in a bathroom somewhere on a crappy camera. I'm also doing that because I'm janky, but I digress. So it's going to be a long-winded video because I'm not good at keeping a train of thought together whatsoever, but I do have a lot of thoughts on it. And I was going to say, aside from just jumping on the algorithmic bandwagon, this Jaguar thing really has picked up some steam, and now there's that old phrase, any publicity is good publicity, and in this case I do think that's kind of true. I think Jaguar has kind of done its job, and the more I think about it, I actually think it's kind of a great troll job. Now, the proof is in the pudding, and we'll see how many of these cars actually get sold when the thing actually comes out. And I'm sure they have lost some customers, but I have a feeling that they've lost a lot more people who would never be customers in the first place. And I think they do have a decent shot of gaining some customers, and we'll talk about all that. So I tried to write like 3 big bullet points here, like legacy within the sort of globalized market generally, and the globalized car market in particular. Marketing, the ad campaign that preceded the unveil of the car, which got everybody's, panties in a bunch, for lack of a better term. Branding, luxury branding, lifestyle branding, the state of the car as a commodity in 21st century influencer social media culture, all that stuff. And then EVs ties into that, because EVs are this just the latest polarizing thing in the polarized world that we live in the auto market specifically. Thirdly, and what makes Jaguar different? So how is this different than any of the other things that we've seen change in the automotive market, whether it comes to the cars themselves or the branding of the vehicles? And that really is what's going to tie it all together. And I'll sort of jump to the end first and say that I think the only thing that differs from all these other marketing campaigns, the Mercedes EQS or Cadillac. I go back to Cadillac. When Cadillac rebranded and became Cadillac were for the longest time big boats. They were always luxury cars. Sometimes they had big engines like the Cadillac V16, but they're always big behemoth luxury cars. And then the Cadillac CTS comes out, the original CTS. It was in The Matrix, and it was in, you can watch my XLR review, I talk about this, and it was in one of the Bad Boys movies. And it was a brilliant marketing campaign to get those cars into those movies. But Cadillac went from being kind of bulbous and round and big and large and luxurious. And yes, they kind of pioneered air conditioning systems. They always had a little bit of tech going on, but they were never a performance car. And then the CTS came out, and Cadillac totally rebranded as these razor sharp edges. It became the performance division of GM, largely kind of replacing what Pontiac was, but also with luxury, which meant they could sell them at a good markup. It was a great move by Cadillac and GM. And Cadillac became what it is today. And then you have the CTS-V, the CTS-V wagon, the XLR, and now the CT4 and CT5 Blackwings, which are it's just a brilliant job. And I don't think what Jaguar is doing is that much different. The only difference is, I don't know how other way to say this, but the commercial that they made, people interpreted that commercial as being woke or being specifically queer in some way. People just hated that, viscerally hated that. And we'll back that up with all the comments that we have on these videos. It's just crazy how, and so if Jaguar can spin this thing the right way, it really was finding that deep, angry, shouting at cloud old man in every single person on the internet, and just shooting a dart right straight to the heart of that person, and just triggering them into this insane rage. Because if you really just look at the car, and okay, it's an electric car. Everybody's going electric. The Cadillac Celestiq, that car, it kind of has the same profile, this long profile. I think it's going to cost people are talking about $130,000, $150,000 for this Jag. The Celestiq is $300,000 car. Now, granted, that's bespoke, and GM has all Jaguar's surviving on the Type 00 a lot more than Cadillac's going to survive on the Celestiq. They're talking about all the gimmicks of this car with the weird things that you put in. It changes the interior. Well, the Soleil, the Cadillac, the convertible version basically of the Celestiq, has bird collars in it. It's a concept car. And that's the other thing. It's a concept car. We're making this giant fuss about a concept car. Concept cars have been outrageous and extreme forever. That's the point of a concept car. When I went to the New York Auto Show when I was 13, and this was the golden age of concept cars. Now I'm dating myself and sounding like an old man, but you know, like it's someone had a great comment where it was like, oh, now we can see what type of wheels will be on the car, because like that's, you look at the Celestiq too, like that is the Cadillac EV now, the Lyriq, which I really like, although I've seen a ton of them on car gurus that say they're lemons, but that's neither here nor there for this video. Basically the same exact styling. And also Cadillac completely changed its logo. Buick just changed its logo. How many times has go look at how many times Mazda has changed their logo. And if you don't know this, by the way, Mazda's logo, Ahura Mazda is like the Zoroastrian like deity. So Mazda actually has their roots in like the Zoroastrian faith, which is very interesting. Neither here nor there. Like, okay, so maybe so the point is, my third point was what makes Jaguar different. And I really think like there's so many comments in here, which we're about to go through, that people are like, oh, you should change the J in Jaguar to an F. And what does that spell? Like that, this is the level of commentary. I know the internet is full of like, you know, people making ridiculous comments, or type 00. That's how many cars they're going to sell. It's like, this is asinine ridiculous. And so like, you may think the Jaguar commercial is like a little bit pretentious or silly, copy nothing, whatever. However, like, it's sort of shining a mirror on you, and how you react to that is really more telling about you than it is about Jaguar. Because guess what? This is a car company with a marketing department. This is what marketing departments do. So we'll get into it. Okay, legacy, globalization, you know, and this is another huge important point. Like, everyone's like, oh, copy nothing. Like, everyone's saying, oh, this is a funeral for Jaguar. This is tarnishing their legacy, spitting on their legacy. Like, by saying copying nothing, you're trashing like the 100 years of whatever history of Jaguar. All these purists and like, you know, all this sentiment of degrading the past and blah blah blah. It's like, if you actually watch the video, which, you know, credit to that dude in blue, he's like, you actually got to go watch the video, the Jaguar video, the reveal with this guy, Jerry McGovern, or Gary. I don't know if it's Jerry or Gary. I don't care. And like the first thing he says is that the phrase copy nothing, the term copy nothing, is like a quote from Sir William Lyons. Like, so they're saying we're not copying anything, but like the entire like campaign, the entire philosophy of this marketing campaign is its bedrock, its foundation, it's like, you know, genesis and origin is a direct quote from the guy who started the company. So like, how do you, like, that's a direct lineage to their legacy. Obviously they're saying, they're like, you know, going forth into the future and all that, but it's not as if they're not making odes, like very clear and obvious, like patently, like, you know, hit you over the head with a hammer, connections to the origins and the foundations of this company. Now, I saw one comment that was like, Sir William Lyons would be rolling over his grave. It's like, yeah, maybe he would have hated electric cars and thought they were stupid. By the way, they had electric cars 100 years ago. Like, Jay Leno, you know, interesting figure, but I do like that Leno kind of is an equal opportunity guy, where he just doesn't like just have a viscerally like hateful reaction to any car. He embraces like electric car, like everything. Like, he just likes everything. And that's kind of where I land. It's like the playing this game of having to have these, like, feeling like you have to have like a viscerally reactionary stance to everything that changes or becomes different, I just think is so silly. And then we have like globalization. Like, Jaguar is owned by Tata Motors, right? They were owned by Ford before that. Like, look at Stellantis. Like, a Jeep Grand Cherokee is owned by the same company that owns like Maserati. And for a while they were both Chryslers, and now they're both Stellantis, which is basically Fiat. You have like Fiat engines in like the Dodge Hornet, and it's also like an Alfa Romeo. Like, in a way, like, we've already lost this battle a long time ago. Like, no brand is really, large brand is really undivested or unentangled with like the global market, and you have all these private equity firms coming in to chop stuff up and merge, and like if there's one. If there's, I'm not trying to be political. If there's one enemy, it's basically like, and enemy's a strong word, but like, if you're worried about like your culture and your heritage changing of all these like lauded automotive companies, all these like crazy business mergers and chopping up of these companies and redistributing of these companies and buying out of these companies and failure of these companies due to like market forces is really the thing that's changing, that's causing this like destabilization of all these companies. Like, Toyotas are made in America and Fords are made in Mexico, and Volkswagens are made in the Czech Republic, and like the idea that there's like Jaguar up until now, up until December of 2024 was like this. There was like 10 old British guys in like a garage somewhere, like hammering out Jaguars, and like that's everything's the same. That's why they keep the cat on the hubcap instead of a J. Like that idea left a long time ago. Like they're owned by Tata Motors, which is like an Indian company. Like and the RCR video does a good job going into like sort of the history of Tata Motors a little bit. But so that ship had already kind of sailed, which again, further evidence that people making a big deal out of this are kind of like, Harry Metcalf said like, oh, the title of his video, which was kind of clever, but it was like, the car is very distinct, but is it a Jaguar? Which is like a perfect like British guy like title for something. And I mean, he owns like 3 or 4 Jaguars. He's this sort of British chap. So I guess he has like, quite a bit of authority to speak on the matter, more so than some others. And his take was actually kind of interesting. I think and that's the thing, the more comments you look at, a lot of people do kind of like the car itself, which again, further evidence that the marketing campaign really just short-circuited something in people, because a lot of people like the proportions of the car. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, pink's not my favorite color, but put it in matte black, like I'd buy one all day, or whatever. It looks like the Batmobile, like that's usually the Batmobile is seen as like a pretty cool thing amongst like alpha male types, right, who seem to be the main people railing against this thing. Okay, so let's talk about marketing and branding. Second point. I'm leaving stuff out, but I could take a month and write like a whole treatise on this because it is fascinating to me. So a lot of people are saying it looks like an air conditioning unit, which is funny because if you look at design, so if you go to Taco Bell, you can get that really fancy soda machine that like has all the different flavors or whatever. Right on that soda machine, it says Pininfarina, who designed, all the great Ferraris, the Fiat 2000, like everyone knows Pininfarina. Pininfarina and Bertoni are probably the 2 most famous styling firms, in Ital design. Giugiaro. But like design houses, they just design things. I've been reading a lot of stuff about Bauhaus, the Bauhaus movement. And like, there's a lot of crossover between industry and arts and, so the fact that it has like some sort of industrial look to it, I don't see how that's like, why that's like a pejorative thing. Oh, it looks like an air conditioning unit. Like, no, it clearly looks like a car to me, and a concept car at that. Like it's a concept car. Like people are freaking out over concept car. And then there's been a lot of like, oh, I don't like the font on it. Again, like look at how many times Mazda's changed their font. Like if it were up to me, Mazda, I don't know why they slashed the name Miata. Miata is like a cute sounding name. It's like a Miata, but it's called MX-5, which sounds like very boring and like, like a government agency or something like that. But guess what? Like it's still a Miata at the end of the day, and they're still awesome. So like who cares? Like their logo used to be like the little circle, and now it's the little Zarathustra thing. I'll try to put a screen in here. Mazda's changed their logo like a million times. Doesn't make the cars any less like better or worse. Like changing the Jaguar's font. Also, they're keeping the Leaper in there. Like the Leaper got like a very minimal redesign, and the cat, who knows? Maybe they'll use that cat face logo somewhere else. But like these things are like the pettiest things in the world to me. If the car is good. And again, the car might suck. And yes, it's going to be heavy. And to make 1,000 horsepower and have 430 miles of range and have that big of a hood, the car is probably going to be super heavy. So maybe it'll just be like a really heavy, electric car that goes fast, which is like every luxury electric car, you know, from the Hummer EV to the Porsche Taycan, like they're all very heavy, you know, that's like a thing that electric cars have going. Now, like, yes, Jaguar is they're not going to make V12s anymore and put them in cars, but it's like, if they did, how many people are going to buy them realistically? You know, Gordon Murray's making a V12 manual supercar. Well, guess what? If you think $130,000 is bad, that car costs like $3.5 million. And that's another point in terms of the marketing, where these bespoke cars like Lamborghini and Ferrari and Bugatti, they're all living off of making these McLaren, these one-off Koenigsegg, one-off like $3.5 million cars, the F80, which apparently everyone hates the F80 too. I actually don't think it looks bad. So like, in terms of people being able to afford these cars, like, there's never been a bigger amount of wealth out there to buy very expensive cars. That, like, there's never been this many cars for sale at this price that are selling in this quantity, you know? So that's like, you know, it used to be the Sultan of Brunei, and now there's like 500, 1,000 guys like that who, you know, just buying all these cars. They buy every single one-off car that these companies make and just dump money into the companies. So I'm not saying Jaguar will be that if it's 130,000, but 130,000, I just saw a Ferrari 360 manual coupe, I believe, a black one, really nice one with like the BBS kind of style wheels, sell and bring a trailer for $130,000. So I got to imagine there's someone that wants the practicality and sort of the modernity of an EV for that same exact price. Now, like, yeah, you could make an argument that Ferrari 360 is a much better car for that price, way cooler, more engaging manual transmission, but the Jaguar is going to be faster. It's going to fit more people and more stuff in it. It's probably going to be much more reliable, you know, barring catastrophic failure. So I think there will be some people that, you know, find this car attractive. And this goes back to the marketing thing too. I think Harry Metcalf said, like, and I'm not trying to crap on these people. Like, I respect them as automotive YouTubers, and God knows they're way more successful than I am. I'm just saying that, like, I think this thing has set people off and triggered people so hard that even like people that I respect and I think would have just like fairly nuanced biased takes on it or unbiased takes on it are jumping on this bandwagon of what like a complete clown show this was. And like, yeah, the ad campaign was whatever, you know. I kind of like the guy spinning, how they put him on a little spinny thing with the paintbrush and he spun around. And also, I will say, I feel like that dude in blue said, oh, he looks like, he looks, no one's smiling. Like, I feel like he does give a little bit of a smirk. He kind of has a little Willem Dafoe thing going on there. I also disagree that the guy, Jerry or Gary, whatever his name is, seemed like upset to be there. He just strikes me as like a super British guy.
David Bowie.
And that's the other thing. Like, yeah, you have this ad campaign that's like, whatever, like a little bold and verbose and like very colorful. And like, yeah, like maybe people compare it to like a perfume commercial, which that's a fair comparison. I think it was like a little tongue in cheek. It was kind of going for that like kind of sort of pretentious vibe. But then the guy that comes out and gives the speech about the cars is like the most British, like stodgy white dude ever. And by the way, I think he's designed like the new Land Rover Discovery. It's not like they're taking that, like with him, they actually made like a pretty conservative, solid choice in terms of who's actually going to be leading the design of this car. So I think like maybe the substance is like there. And again, people freaking out over this commercial that preceded the videos. So everyone's saying, oh, they're making it look like a purse, like a fancy purse, or like it's like haute couture. It's like they're trying to make this some like fashion accessory. And they're saying that as if Jaguar A didn't think of that, and B, that's not a potentially, successful way to rebrand. And I'm thinking like, yeah, like of course that's what they're doing. That's what cars are becoming. Like Porsche's already that, you know, it's a status symbol. That's what the Cybertruck is. Like it has to have some bare functionality, but at that price point, once you're getting to this price of a car, you kind of are buying a fashion accessory. And again, a lot of people out there have a lot of money to spend on fashion accessories. And so I think like Jaguar turning, like rebranding, like like the XKE. If you want an XKE, you can buy an XKE. You can buy an XKE cheaper than you can buy this new Type 00. Like 130,000 will get you a really nice XKE. I saw an XKE for sale, or an E-type for sale. The floorboards were all rusted out, and it had like a Chevy 350 motor in that. It was 15 grand in like British Racing Green. I don't have the money to buy that, but I wish I did, because I would have bought it. Because who cares what, I mean, if you're buying an XKE for 15 grand. So like, also like people are saying, oh, I'll never buy this, it's too expensive. Good. You can go out and buy an XK8 for like 6 grand. You know, like you can get a Jaguar right now. You don't need like, oh, the Jaguar's going down the tubes. Well, guess what? They made cars for like 80 years or whatever. You can go buy a Jaguar right now. You can buy an XF, or you can buy a, you know, also like this thing about Jaguar ruining their identity. Like, no offense to Jaguar, I love Jaguar. A Jaguar XJ220 was one of my favorite cars ever. And by the way, when that came out, everyone hated it because it only had a, you know, twin turbo 6-cylinder instead of the 12-cylinder that they were going to promise. And now look at the values. They're up to like, try to find one under $1 million. So maybe I have this like both like this defensiveness towards Jaguar, where I want to defend them, but also this like realistic thing that like Jaguar, like when was the last time Jaguar was really, really relevant in like the car scene? Like in the United States during the Ford years, the X-Type and the S-Type, people, here's irony, people hated those, or people criticized those cars because they said the styling was too derivative and it looked too much like, you know, the cars of like the 60s. So like damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Incidentally, I love that S-Type, and I think you can get it with like a 3-liter 6-cylinder and a manual transmission. It's like the most retro of all of them looking, and I think a little S-Type sedan with a manual transmission you could probably find for like 7 or 8 grand. Great. And then I think those, you know, Ford-derived engines are known to be fairly reliable, so that would be like a great way to get into a Jaguar. But that's the point. If you want to get like into a Jaguar, you can right now. And this is, you know, Harry Metcalf had another video where he's like complaining about new cars. And like, yeah, I can't buy new cars because they're too expensive. So like I have a lot to complain about too. But also like, just because new cars are like something that you don't like anymore. I mean, the silver lining was a lot of them are going to depreciate like crazy, and they're going to make good used cars in a few years. And, you know, that's like maybe one of the few services that the ultra rich do to us is they take depreciation hits, you know. But also like the cars have been made for hundreds and hundreds of years, like well, not hundreds and hundreds. They've been made for well over 100 years. Like, I don't get why like people think the world's ending because like there's not going to be gasoline cars made forever. It's like you can like if there's aftermarket support for something, or you can EV convert it, like the possibilities are endless. Like you can make anything you want. And I think the resto mod, of course, like not $1 million, $2 million Singer resto mods, but I think the resto mod movement has been very, very cool, because now like all this culture is like morphing. Like you have people K-swapping, you know, Ford Rangers like for 6 grand, you know, like that's like a reliable daily driver car that gets good gas mileage, makes more power than it did originally, like it's just a better car than a Ford Ranger or like a Honda whatever Civic or CRV was. Like to that person, it's the best possible car, and they could do it for a fraction of the price of what it costs to usually even put a down payment on a new car. The average price of a new car is like $48,000. So I agree that yeah, I don't really like new cars either, but I think like, you know, complaining about the price of like Ferraris and Lamborghinis, it's like look at the price of Kias and Hyundais. I mean, like a lot of people can't afford any new car, let alone these like luxury, you know, and a new Aston Martin's 300 grand. Like, damn, it used to be less than that. It was like, well, how much is a new Hyundai? How much is a Telluride? You know, like I'm buying a 10-year-old Prius with 130,000 miles on it. Okay. I'll probably edit this part out, getting distracted. So the whole point is that calling this like a lifestyle product now, I don't think is like, I mean, yes, it's accurate, but I don't think it's really a bad thing. And I don't think it's wrong for Jaguar to like necessarily pivot in that direction. I mean, what are they going to do? Try to make up market share against like Tesla and BMW and Mercedes? Nobody's even making sedans anymore anyways. Like the entire market has totally changed. And so if Jaguar wants to be like, sort of like, wants to be the, another thing Harry said was like, oh, they're changing all the logos like Rolls-Royce. Now there's a company that just like never changes its logo, and like they have like a defined identity and they've stuck with it. It's like the Rolls-Royce is like the New York Yankees of cars, you know? It's like, but also like, that's Rolls-Royce. Like how many cars a year are they selling? Like Jaguar's got to try to sell more cars than that. So like, I don't know if that's necessarily the best example of like a car that never changes its branding or whatever like that. Like I think more people will know that what Jaguar's new design language is. And so if that's the case, like people are like, oh, that's the Jaguar. Like I hate them now, but you know it's a Jaguar, and that's sort of the point. So it's kind of obvious, but I think there is something to be said for that any publicity is good publicity. So that's what I wanted to say. Like, and a lot of people like electric cars. Like now there's a lot of young people who are still like petrol heads or whatever, and that's good. I think that's cool. I think like old machines, and I think, you know, knowing history and learning history is extremely important. However, I also think there's going to be a certain type of person who never drives a gasoline car and electric's all they know. Like there's tons of examples of technology that people have adopted. You know, like a lot of people have dishwashers now, and it's like, well, back in the day, we used to wash our dishes by hand. And it's like, well, sometimes washing the dishes can be relaxing and meditating, but also like a lot of people just want to use a dishwasher. And like people, you know, people say cars are becoming appliances. Again, I kind of agree, but if they're going to want, a lot of people want high-end appliances. You know, you could buy a refrigerator for $600, or you could buy like a $6,000 refrigerator because it's got fancy doors on it. A lot of people buy those fancy refrigerators, so a lot of people are going to buy fancy cars. And I think Jaguar is making a compelling case that, I mean, I think it's cooler than the e-tron. I think it's cooler than the Taycan. I think it's cooler than, now maybe it's just because it's new and it's fresh on the block, but like I think it's a cool looking car. And I think a lot of people actually agree with that. But again, I think they're just somehow personally offended by the fact that Jaguar had an ad campaign that they feel looks like a perfume commercial, and also they interpret as being somehow an affront to their like values.
But before the stroll, the thin white Duke was asked to move his own machine, a classic Jaguar.
Is this an E-type? Yes, 1968 series 1.5. I saw these when I was 16 years old. So, job done.
Which kind of sounds a little bit like they're like maybe have a little bit of bigotry in them that they don't want to admit, and this commercial made them feel uncomfortable. And that to me is the overall takeaway of this whole thing, is like a lot of people find this are made really uncomfortable. I'm not talking about everybody, like I'm not talking about these commentators specifically, but more just so in the comment section, like a lot of people, this made them like really, really uncomfortable. And I just wonder how invested they actually are in Jaguar as a brand, and how much, why they're so emotionally triggered by what is, you know, the latest branding exercise within capitalism. There's tons of them all the time. You know, this is what marketing and capitalism are, and things are always changing and turning over. The beauty is you can go buy old cars.
The only nice car I've ever bought for myself was 1967 E-type, 1.5.
It's like no one is stopping you from buying an old car. Now, maybe eventually they're gonna like sort of like make illegal driving gas cars on the road. Personally, I don't think that's ever gonna happen, because I think the more things switch over, the less of a, you know, issue actually burning fuel is going to be. You also have alternative synthetic fuels, and I just don't think it'll happen. If it were to happen and we couldn't drive any gasoline cars, I would personally convert my cars to EV just to be able to drive them, because I think a lot of the driving experience is the drivetrain, but I think a lot is the shape of the vehicle, the internals of the vehicle, the design of the vehicle, the experience you get just being in the vehicle, the interior, the amenities, all that. So I would convert my cars if gas cars are made illegal, but I do think it's a little bit of an overstep to make them illegal. However, I don't think that's the argument people are making. I don't think they're saying like this is the sign that the government's going to ban gasoline cars. I think they're saying, I don't like this Jaguar because I don't like the ad campaign, because it makes me feel like culture and society is changing in a way that I don't feel comfortable with. And that's not my place to say whether it is or is not. Like, we all have our opinions, and I think as we get older, we all yearn for the past in a way, no matter who we are. But I think just the comments themselves, and maybe we'll get into that specifically. So let's go ahead and record my screen here. If I can figure out how to do it on my phone, because I'm, an old person now, I don't know how to use my phone. So I'm going to record my screen right now. This video is going to be so long as it is. This is the title of Hoovie's video, is the new era of Jaguar copies nothing that car buyers want. Well, car buyers supposedly wanted manual transmissions too, and a lot of these companies made manual transmission cars and no one bought them. So there is a little bit of a gulf between what people say they want and what people are actually willing to buy. Neither here nor there. I mean, we'll see. Again, we'll see. Maybe Jaguar goes belly up and they sell none of these cars and it's a complete, utter failure. But I do think that in a way they really had no place left to go. I think that if they what did Neil Young say? It's better to burn out than to fade away. I think if they had just gone and started making the same types of cars they've been making for the last 20 years. And again, there was one, I think it's the XF, the extended one. It was like a mile long. I thought that car was really, really sharp looking. It's not to say I don't like some of the Jaguars, but I think and the RCR video touched on, how they may have kind of screwed over a lot of their dealers by saying they're going to start selling like way more cars than is probably realistic, and these crazy growth models, I don't think that's unique to Jaguar. I think a lot of companies have tried to do that. Look at Lotus trying to sell 150,000 a year of its new electric SUV. It's just like, again, that's my whole point, is that the Lotus SUV, no commentary on that. I mean, a little bit, but it hasn't become this giant sensation. And I think, again, the lowest common denominator, what's the independent variable here? It's that ad campaign. So, all right, so here, just, again, these are comments. I just screen grabbed a ton of comments. Don't worry, Jaguar, no one's going to copy you. Jaguar, we did a Cybertruck, but gayer, okay? This comment's actually kind of funny. The only thing brave and fearless about this is that they left the comments enabled, which is, again, this is why I think it's kind of a troll move, because I think Jaguar is like shining a mirror to all these people. And maybe this, seeing what this older audience is actually like, or I don't know if they're older, but whatever this negative visceral reaction is to this, maybe that makes Jaguar feel a little bit edgy and a little bit cool. Like, maybe, who knows, maybe I could see Jaguar taking a lot of these comments and putting them into an ad campaign to show how negative the reaction was to their car in order to promote their car. So, this is not a Jaguar. It only identifies with one. I think they mean identifies as one. Not surprisingly, a person criticizing this doesn't exactly know the nomenclature. And there were, the Jaguar type rainbow, the color says it all, go woke, go broke. Which is so funny that this ad campaign was just basically colorful and featured people with weird haircuts, and a lot of them were minorities. I don't know why, what, there's so many comments just the new Jag absolutely sucks from each aspect. Nuff said. That's right. People are still saying nuff said in 2024. An awesome model. Nothing wrong with this. I don't get the hate. I think it's so cool. At least it's not a pickup truck parody like something else. I think there were, most of these are, by the way, are on the Top Gear video. The Jaguar Liberace. Okay. Okay, better an old Jaguar than the new. Again, use the word Jaguar with an F instead of a J. I would buy this something different, as everything seems the same these days. So there is quite a bit of like positivity, I gotta say, and I think they've achieved their goal, which is to polarize people, because a lot of people are being positive about it, and the people that are being negative about it are being really negative about it, which I think like that's, people overplay their hand and then they end up looking foolish. This one I screen grabbed this because it says, when you roll out of bed, put on clothes you found on the floor and do a YouTube video. That's what I'm doing right now. So that one was just funny. Okay, that's why I don't watch Top Gear anymore. No balls, nothing authentic, so lame. The car is awful and marketing is even worse. Yeah, people just crapping on Top Gear too, which is funny. Bring back Clarkson. And again, I love Clarkson, but okay, substitute the word J for an F. Have designed their own coffin. Okay, here's a good one. Most people say Jaguar is self-destructing, but in my eyes, this is the only way Jaguar can keep selling cars. If this car is sold, it is very likely for quote-unquote influencers to buy this car for content or for style. The strategy of this car is the same as the Cybertruck, but more drastic. I agree with that comment. This is funny. The problem with ditching the past is it means China can copy it for half the price, as if they couldn't copy anything. I don't know. So to Top Gear, we're all trolls. Unsubscribed, all caps. There's nothing better than announcing that you're unsubscribing from a YouTube video by writing a comment, which increases engagement for that. I personally think it looks pretty cool, but not a fan of the rear or the interior. The interior, it's got like a piece of stone in it, which I think is actually it's kind of funny. Like putting like stone in a car is very funny. But again, it's a concept car. Like concept cars always do outlandish things. Like that's the whole. That's like almost the mission statement, is to do something outlandish, and then then you've basically you're previewing the design language. That's all a concept car is. But to that point, this is funny. This guy says, yes, stone, well known for weight saving in cars. So that's just funny, I think. To me, that's just funny. I thought that was a funny comment. This is the mischief big red boots of cars. That's a pretty spot on comment. If you remember those big red boots. Copy nothing, and then they make the female version of the Tesla Cybertruck. I don't know if that's, right. Again, I don't know why, I guess because it's pink, but I don't think the car is like particularly has particularly like quote unquote feminine design language. It's kind of like it's very like phallic, to be honest. So I don't agree with that, but I think again, associating anything that's like queer, like the misogyny and like homophobia like go hand in hand. So again, I'm not saying this, like I'm not trying to like be like woke police here, but I think like when you see like just people turning the J into an F in Jaguar, like how many times you see that, or like but one was, here's another one, the new J to an F Jaguar looks like a pink pedo pimp mobile. IMO, in my opinion. Well, yes, I wasn't aware that was your opinion. I wasn't aware that you were opinionating when you opined a YouTube comment. Just to be clear. So the amount of these comments is like, I think, sort of damning evidence that like basically a lot of the reaction to this car was the reaction to the ad campaign, and I guess the color pink. Even though they did one in London blue too. And then some more P. Diddy comments, which again, like how now we're associating like things that we perceive as queer to be things that are suddenly like, PDF file adjacent. I don't understand that. Okay, it's stunning, but with those looks and details, it'll cost every bit as much as a Rolls-Royce coupe that it flatteringly apes. I I do hope I'm wrong. Either way, it's certainly a stunning, bold design. So that's, you know, I think they do have, this is actually pretty cool. Okay, the new 2025 substitute a J for an F, XY type, which is a chromosome joke. So now we're getting sophisticated in our bigotry. Available now at your substitute an F for a J Jaguar / bend over dealership. It's just like god awful. Probably the worst looking car in the history of the world. Okay, first thoughts, Barbie and Pink Panther made it, and the result was the Hunchback of Notre Dame, but then again, it is still a beautiful baby, better in London blue. A lot of who is it? Lady Penelope, which I had never heard. I'd never understood that reference, but that's so you know, I guess there are a lot of like older people that are very invested in Jaguar, because I did not understand that reference. Okay, I think the 4.9K thumbs down compared to the 3.6 thumbs up sort of says it all. So I guess, you know, Jaguar is doing everything they said. They're going to lose some customers, but they're trying to gain some in the process. Again, you know, you could say whatever you want, but I think feel like again, the sentiment of like personal ownership of the Jaguar brand, and like you feel like slighted or like disrespected that Jaguar, again, which is not even a British company anymore and has not been for a while, was an American company, is now an Indian company, or at least owned by those, you know, not that a company can't operate independently, but like, I'm sort of beating you over the head with it now, but I think like this is just the thing that's happening. And to get so worked up about it is kind of like, again, I think it says more about people in general than it says about like a car company trying to rebrand. Here's a good one. I have no idea what the hate is about. This car is undeniably a Jag. It's a long, low, short overhang luxury coupe with legitimate cues from Jags of 70s and 80s. The ads are crap, yeah, but I was just as shocked when I saw this. It looks pretty good to me. Retro is in, and I think this is right on the money. Again, the car, not the ad campaign, nor the full image rebrand. No idea what else is to come, but this car seems right to me. It always amazes me how people, everything must tick all the right boxes for people. This perfectionism is the thief of joy. Take things individually, and if you like it, that should be fine. I don't have to hate a thing just because someone else said I can't like both, and vice versa. How sad. Boom. That's like, I mean, that really, you know, in one little comment, this person said probably better than I could in like however long I've been blathering now for. Give me one in matte black and I'll put my deposit down now. Only stubborn old men are going to hate this. Bring on the future. So, you know, I could get more receipts here. The last thing I'll say is one person, and I couldn't find the comment. I looked forever for it. I stayed up way too late last night looking for the comment. But one was like, oh, the first car that gets like that wants to get like, I'm trying to be like coy about this, but basically the car that like that wants to get rear-ended, like, you know, by a person. And that was like the most like insane comment, where they're just like boiling down this like sort of hatred to its essence, like actually personify, like what's the word when you like anthropomorphizing the car as like, I don't know, like whatever, you get the point. But it's funny because even that insane comment was false, because if you Google like Chris Parnell SNL car sketch or something like that, you will see that they actually have already treaded over this ground. I think it was like a Lincoln, was it a town car or a Continental? One of the 90s ones that was a little bit more bulbous and round. Or was it a, now I'm going to get this. Anyways, it was, so even that guy in that comment was actually, there's already precedent for that, like 20 some years ago. So, you know, thinking that the sky is falling because Jaguar had the audacity to you know, come out with a new car and have a marketing campaign around it. This is like a designer handbag on wheels. Again, maybe that's the point. Okay, hey Gary, hey Ace, what's everybody looking at? Go for the break. This duo car is a hard one to swallow. So you know, I think we get the point. Oh, Jaguar 00, is that the amount of cars they're expecting to sell? Like, just real winners. This one's pretty funny. It looks like a Barbie doll car, one that Ken would never drive. Which is funny because, you know, like, Ken's not exactly like, anyways. Here you go. Think of Clarkson saying Jag and replace the J with F. And that's what Jaguar's brand has become. Like, this person really had to spell it out for us. They couldn't just write it out. Okay, so there you go. You might like the car, you might like the shape of it, you might not. You might think it's ugly, you may think like EVs are stupid, and you may, like, again, this is like, you know, the most insane thing to get totally crazy, angry, and defensive about. But this, you know, again, it's YouTube. People make comments, whatever. Not my place to say. I am a small, unknown car YouTuber, so I'm you know, jumping on the bandwagon, doing everything everyone else is doing. I'm not trying to stand on some pedestal of judgment or superiority. I just think it's funny that the car, to me, is not the story. Everyone, and I think even people that think the car is the story, they don't think the car is the story either. They think it's something else. And I think it's something else too, but I don't think it is what they think it is. And that's my opinion on the Jaguar Type 00. I think it's cool looking. Quick plug, if you've made it this far, you're just probably just as insane as me and some of these commenters. I did a video comparing the Cybertruck to the Ford Aerostar, and I think it's a really good video, and I think it's prescient for right now because people are comparing the Cybertruck to this Jaguar Type 00. I think no matter how, you know, this copy nothing phrase, I think things are always derivative and always draw influence from the past. And I thought I was just proud of that video I made comparing the Cybertruck to the Aerostar. I thought it was I made some good points too. So if you have made it this long and you want to hear Beef Janky blather more for another 25 minutes or whatever it is, go check that out. So yeah, that's it. I've just sat on a toilet with a model of an E-type here talking about what I think about Jaguar's situation, we'll call it. And you can come at me in the comments if you think I'm like, you know, like a woke jackass. I mean, I am broke, so you know. But that's all I got for now. We'll see what happens with the car. You know, it's gonna be another 2 years till whatever the thing is, and you see them driving out on the road with their camouflage on, and it probably won't be as drastic. And we'll see what they do. You know. Personally, I'd rather have an Aptera, but we'll see if that thing ever comes out either. Okay, there you go. This has been Beef Janky blathering about things here on Janky AF. We'll have another one for you coming very soon. And until then, Janky do thank you.
David Bowie.
One small step for man, one